G'day, Bomber fans. We've got a game tonight, Thursday night footy, which means last night was team selection, and I don't think too many people were that mad about this one, at least compared to last week and weeks before. I guess I'll find out when I check the comments on this video after work, but yeah, minimal changes. They're changes that I think are going to be really interesting in the coming weeks, so there is a bit to talk about. Let's get into it. Okay, ins and outs. We're going to start with North, age before beauty. Paul Curtis is out of the side with suspension, very controversial. I think it's more an argument as to whether or not he should actually be suspended, let alone the length of said suspension. I probably wouldn't have batted an eyelid at 1 week, but the way the MRO was set out, it was 3 or nothing, and unfortunately it's 3. George Wardlaw's also out of the side, managed to a knock he copped last week. That was expected. 2 big losses. Would love to have had them in the game. Darcy Tucker has been dropped after an unsuccessful tag on Kangaroo last week. He had 0 disposals for the entire game. And coming into the side, we've got Bailey Scott, Will Phillips, and Finbar Malley, who is making his debut, so congratulations to him. As for the Dons, Dylan Shearer's out. He's been rested after cramping up late in Anzac Day. Elijah Tsatas comes in. That's what we thought would happen. I do think there was 100% room for a Jones or Gresham omission, just based on form. But I also don't mind the idea of them having to prove their worth this week and face the Axe when the reinforcements arrive for next week's Swans game. Because if we dropped Jones, we'd be just having to change the structure to the team entirely. There is no real like-for-like replacement at the moment, and Scott likes height under Marvel. If we dropped Gresham, it would have been for Davey, I guess, who underperformed in the VFL. As for Day Wicks, I know people will bring him up. I do think a debut is close. He's on the emergencies. But I think it's reasonable to give him another week in the VFL, seeing as just a fortnight ago he was having a bit of a mare. So yes, he's close to being ready, but bringing him into the side would have been off the back of one good competitive game in the last 4 weeks. So I think that makes a lot of sense to leave him out for that extra week. I do think in an ideal world you could drop one or both of Jones or Gresham. You could make the argument that Jones is dropped for Sard, but even Sard didn't really light it up in the resis on the weekend. And I did say that I want him playing full minutes for a while, and I don't think he'd be getting that in the AFL. So ideal world, Jones and Gresham are probably dropped, but I think the way the team is structured at the moment and the replacements we have for them, it's hard to really justify making those changes. In my eyes, the way I see it, omitting or dropping a player is just as much about great form for the incoming player as it is bad form for the outgoing player. And you can't really tell me that anyone on the outside who is ready to play and that can replace them right now is in terrific or great form. So here's North's team. I won't go through name by name, just talking about some interesting things. So that defence is still very young with no Core or Logue. It is a key back duo of Comben and Dawson. Comben's really promising, but it'll be tough to manage an informed Peter Wright under the roof at Marvel. The midfield is strong and bats deep. They've got pure mids on the wings, it seems. I guess it's strong and bats deep, but it's also young. Foss and McKercher won't end their careers as wingmen, so that's a big advantage for us with Xavier Dersma, who's as professional a wingman as they come. The forward line looks a bit worse without Paul Curtis. A lot of reliance on Suvalaki. Zerha would really have to lift. So too Darling, who's been a bit quiet in the last few weeks. There are some interesting players around, and the thing with North is, because so many of these guys are high draft picks and young high draft picks, really talented kids, there's always the breakout game potential around the corner, because you've got McKercher, who's going along nicely, Foss, Zane Dersma. Any of these guys could take that next step and announce themselves at any given moment. Even Riley Hardiman, he's someone I really liked in defence of his draft year, so interesting team. And the Bombers, we are unchanged in defence, unchanged up forward. The only change to our team is in the midfield with Tsatas coming in. I think this team makes a lot more sense than last week's. Last week in the wet, we were a bit too tall, you could say. But under the roof at Marvel, I think we're a good size. And I hope that Jones is on the opposite wing to Dersma, because that could really hurt North in the air if he's presenting as a good marking target. I think the sub will again be a small forward. Gresham or Menzies, take your pick. Or maybe Tsatas. I hope not. That'd be annoying. Given he was rested in the VFL the week before. A few things to talk about. So Sheila's rested. Caldwell might be back next week, or maybe the week after. This makes this particular match crucial for every midfielder in the team, pretty much, because, you know, one poor performance, whether it's Hobbs, Setterfield, or even Tsatas, and they could make way for Shield or Caldwell if he's ready to go. So this is going to be a fascinating game, not just for this week, but for the rest of the season, because this is where we can see someone drop to the resis and struggle to get back in. This is going to be the turning point for a few individual seasons. Because maybe it's Shield. Remember, Tsatas was in our best 23 before that hand injury, and then Shield came into the guts, and Tsatas was stuck in the VFL. Maybe Shield's the one on the outer because we've got no one to replace. So, yeah, really interesting week for the midfielders and just the team in general, really. That injury list is a lot smaller now. Guelphy and Cox are playing in the VFL tomorrow, Caldwell the week after, Parish maybe not too long after that, but who knows. I think the back six is about as steady as it can be for the time being. I know people want Pryor and Mackay dropped. Pryor was poor on Anzac Day, but was really solid the 3 games prior to that. Mackay hasn't been at his best, but, you're silly if you thought that he was a liability on Anzac Day. I think the majority of the changes we make in the coming weeks will be to the midfield and the forward line, unless injury forces us to do anything else. But yeah, I'd be keeping an eye on Archer Day Wicks if we do underperform up forward this week. And also, congratulations to Jordan Ridley. 100 games. That is a really solid effort for a guy who made a latish debut and has battled injury. Hopefully there are plenty more to come. Okay, who is it a big game for this week? It is a massive game for Jade Gresham. He just has to perform. We need him up and about, and not only, for the team, but for himself. He is genuinely at risk of being dropped, I'd say, especially because Guelphy's, coming along. He's back in the VFL. He will probably spend a couple of weeks in the resis given he had surgery on that hamstring. But he's a reliable forward option. Not as good as Gresham at his best, but you know what you get from him, and that is reliable pressure, something Gresham hasn't been giving us lately, and it's something we need. There is also Archer Day Wicks and Alwyn Davey Jr. waiting in the wings. All they need is one more good game, and they could probably be in the side. So yeah, massive game for Gresham. If he underperforms again, he may well be dropped next week. It is also a big game for Elijah Tsatas. He really needs to stay in this team for his future, and the best way to do that is to perform. Under the roof at Marvel, there aren't really many excuses for ball use and rush disposal. Nerves will surely be there given his in and out of place in the team. But yeah, he needs to be firing to stay in this side. And finally, Ben Mackay. He's going to have North fans booing him. He might have Essendon fans booing him. He unfortunately is a player who doesn't really have a proper fan base behind him at the moment. If he can lock down on Larky like he did on Myercheck and Van Rooyen, it'll be a happy Ben and a happy fan base. But if he lets him off the loose like he did to Waterman the other week, I'd be very unsurprised if the Bronx cheers make a return. I obviously wouldn't like it, but, it's happened this year already. And when it happened this year, he wasn't even playing that badly in that particular match. So yeah, this is probably one of the games this year that he just really must perform in if we're being brutally honest. Otherwise, it's going to be a long 4 quarters for him. So let's hope he's up and about. At his best, he's a great defender. He was talked about by the All-Australian committee halfway through the season last year. He isn't a spud. We need him back at that form. But yeah, that is that. Quicker video today. I'm going to hop off to work. Enjoy the game. Like, subscribe, and go Bombers.